It's recording. All right. Hi, friends and family.
Hi there, Rex and Shana here.
Good to see you. Thanks for joining us.
Getting ready for another potentially in-depth conversation. We tend to do that.
Us going deep?
No way. Seriously, I hope you get something. If you're watching our conversations, watching this video, I really hope you're getting something meaningful out of it. That's the idea, and that's why we do it. So,
Right.
I mean, we're here to help.
And we don't know how to have small talk, but we also don't really call it deep. It's just our normal way of talking.
Yeah, this is pretty much what we just do anyways. Whether the camera's rolling or not, this is what we do.
This is how we communicate. So, I mean, why bother communicating if it's not meaningful?
I'm not very good at the small talk. I mean, I'm that's fine. I respect it, but I'm not very good at it. I don't know. Some people are better at it than others, but I just don't do it very well. It tends to be an awkward experience if I try to do small talk. Even when I try to, it's not like I'm being disrespectful to anybody, but I don't know, it just doesn't always go as well when I do it.
Not at all. As you can see,
it's not always appropriate to go deep all the time either. So with us, it seems to be, but not everybody else necessarily always wants to go deep. So.
Well, that's why we do this, and other people don't. So as you can see, we're coming to you from my office today, which is it's a good space, right?
It's comfy
cozy.
In here. It is.
It needs to be cozy. You want it comfortable. And Radix is with us, and he's really playful, which is sweet. Love having a puppy join us.
He is a character.
So we've had interesting conversations about the week and about things in general, life in general, all kinds of cool stuff. I was starting to share and I stopped myself. I'm like, I think I'm gonna wait and share this on camera. So,
Yeah, you were saying you had an experience. So
yes.
I've not heard about this yet, but
No.
it sounds very interesting.
Okay, so Rex and I have a lot of transpersonal experiences, which is why we do what we do. And we love sharing those experiences with others who also have their experiences. No two are going to be the same. And I've had experiences with people.
Hopefully it makes you feel a little bit less alone in the world sometimes. Because I know there are times that I just feel very alone. Having such experiences, not having anyone to talk to about them, or any outlets about it. So again, that's part of the reason. Another one of the many reasons we're doing this. So anyway.
It's so true. Yeah, as a kid, I didn't know other kids who were like getting regular visits from people who had passed and transitioned and then came back to visit, who wanted to be seen or validated or, as a little toddler.
Just share on a loving level.
Right.
It's just something real simple.
Yeah, had other
more
kids.
Than hello.
Yeah, or other kids who had already passed who came back to play and visit. And like, I thought all kids had that, but they didn't. And it was really weird, particularly around, I guess, 3rd grade. I really started realizing like other 3rd graders weren't having these experiences. So when there was a lot of activity in my house and friends would come over and they'd want to play, but then sometimes they'd get scared away, like just never come back because there was so much activity. And I was like, but this is normal life, and sometimes it's kind of scary, like when you watch in the plush carpet, like male shoe footprints appear walking towards the table that you're playing at with your friends, and doors opening, closing, or moving things, and
And as a kid, I didn't have this frequently. And as a kid, I really wasn't sure what I believed in along those lines. But I did definitely have experiences that go beyond just classical explanation for sure. So I can relate to a point, but as a kid, there was one of those things that I would say, I guess it may have been all around me. Maybe I just didn't notice it because I didn't really gain this level of sensitivity until I had my near-death experience 11 years ago. So I definitely have had experiences throughout the course of my life, definitely, but not quite the way you're describing it. I wasn't quite the open channel as a child.
I was born with it.
Right.
It's been like this since I was a baby.
And I may have been to some extent myself, because like I said, I've got a few as well. That, perhaps I'll share one of them as we go along here. But I want to hear about what you were talking about. Because a lot of times when we go to this, I already know the story, but in this case, I don't know the story. I haven't heard this yet, so I'm very curious.
So sometimes I'll just be driving by myself. All of a sudden I'll look, check my mirrors, look in the rearview mirror, in the back seat, somebody's in the back seat that wasn't in the car when I got in the car, and they're just sitting there looking around or looking at me, and I'm like, oh, okay, so someone just decided to show up in the car again. All right, well, that's not that uncommon. It's not like it happens every day, but it's not like it happens never, you know? So I was like, all right, well, that's something I'm kind of accustomed to. So I get to this intersection near my house. There's a coffee house I go to a lot that I really like. So I'm turning left to go to this coffee house. And I'm in the one that you and I went to sometimes.
Oh,
You
sure.
sometimes
Cool.
visit.
Yeah.
So I'm turning left to go to the coffee house. And I'm stopped at that intersection next to the median. And I'm probably the second or third car at the light to turn left. All of a sudden, there is banging on the trunk of my SUV. Like loud banging, like someone's hitting my car. But they're not just banging it so hard that the vehicle shakes from someone hitting it.
Right.
So I'm looking around thinking that there's, a person maybe standing on the corner begging for money, or a vagrant, just like a street person, maybe someone with mental illness trying to get attention, whatever, somebody wants to be seen. So I'm looking at all my mirrors, I'm looking around at all the other cars to look at their reaction, and everybody is looking forward, minding their own business, and nobody's reacting to the person hitting my car. Well, it's the trunk of the car, in the back panels only. No one is reacting, and I can't see anyone, and I am just searching the car. Then it happens again, where there's repeated banging on the car.
Were you in motion? Were you stopped?
No, stopped at the light.
Okay, so stopped. Okay.
Daytime, stopped
Right.
at the light, and I'm looking, and again, and the car's shaking. Then it happens a third time, this time from the inside of my car, from the trunk, beating to the outside. So it's inside the vehicle, like someone's kicking with their legs the trunk of the SUV. Like kicking it, and the whole vehicle shaking. I'm like, what in the world is this? So I'm still looking around thinking it's a living person, right? But nobody's there. It happens a fourth time, and this time from the outside of the vehicle.
Sorry, Radix is just
He is-
entertaining himself over
he is
here.
so
Very
playful.
cute.
He's so playful.
Anyway, go ahead, sorry.
So it happens a fourth time, this time from the outside of the vehicle, and again, it's the back panels and the trunk of the car. Then the light turns and I have to drive. There's nobody at the intersection. I'm looking in my mirror still. None of the other cars are reacting, and there's not one person standing there.
Right.
But this is so loud, and the physical hitting of the
And
vehicle,
you can feel the vibrations of the hitting.
which shaking the car. It's not just the vibration. The car is actually shaking from someone hitting it so hard.
So is it coming from inside or outside the car?
The first two times outside, and the fourth time outside, but the third time from the inside.
Okay.
As if somebody's kicking from the inside the back of the trunk to push
Always
the
somebody
lid
really
open.
trying to get your attention.
That's the only time I've ever experienced this. It was a whole new experience.
Did it stop at some point, or was there?
I drove off, then it stopped.
Okay, interesting. So whatever it was, maybe it wasn't necessarily associated specifically with the vehicle, but with that location, perhaps something.
I wondered, I figured first that it's a living person, then there was no person that I could see, but physically I could feel this person's presence. And it's a strong enough force to make the car move, to cause this loud hitting, this loud sound, louder than
Is always
Radix
coming
is
from the
being.
conversation.
Yeah, Radix found a ball. Here you go, love. He's so cute. Yeah, so all these things are happening, and nobody around me is acting like anything is strange or weird.
So there was nothing to see as far as anyone
There was
else.
nothing to see,
anybody
but there was
around
a
you
lot
talking
to
about-
hear and a
But you
lot
were
to
experiencing
feel.
this experience that nobody else was observing. So there's seemingly, at least apparently, nobody there, but something was clearly going on.
Right, something was clearly going on. So that was it was exciting. It wasn't boring. It was probably 3:00 in the afternoon,
Right.
so the sun was still
Did it
out.
cause any damage or anything?
No, there were no marks. There were no handprints. There was no indication of anything. You don't want that on my desk. All right, there you go, love. Radix is really excited today. So it is, it's Yule. It is winter solstice.
Solstice, yep.
Yeah.
Longest night.
It is.
Such energy.
There was a big gathering at Red Rocks.
For solstice, for sure.
Do you know there was a huge gathering this early morning, around 4 o'clock this morning. People started converging at Red Rocks for a ceremony.
It doesn't surprise me.
Drum circle and all kinds of beautiful things, and people to honor what matters to them.
Absolutely.
You know, I just gave you a Christmas gift, and
beautiful thing.
We're celebrating Christmas.
Changing of the seasons, longest night of the year. It's that it's that holiday season, whatever it is you're celebrating this time of year.
But you know, every year it's solstice for an equinox both. So summer, winter, and then for spring and autumn. Every single year, I'm thinking, can I be at the pyramids in Mexico? What would it be like to be at Chichen Itza right now?
Wow. Or someplace like Stonehenge, maybe.
That too. Or even the other Stonehenge, right?
There's so many places around the world, even the Egyptian pyramids, or anything along those lines where.
Right.
Oh gosh.
Or even Kansas, where the pyramids are.
Sure.
I mean, there's. How interesting is it?
Like the Nazca lines and all that stuff.
Right? I mean, how interesting is it that pyramids were built all around the world in different locations at the exact same time? I mean, is this 100th monkey? Is this aliens visiting where we have their knowledge? Right? Because that's
There's still tremendous
huge
mysteries behind all of that, because theoretically the technology didn't exist to be able to build such a thing. And even with modern day technology, to build these structures will be challenging. So, yeah, those are all fair questions.
Right. I mean, everything from the Anunnaki to the Anasazi.
Sure, right.
You know?
And most legends are based in truth somewhere.
But how is it both legends happen at the exact,
Right.
you know, different cultures in different periods of time, people who could never know that the other existed with the exact same history and lineage.
Right.
I mean, like, this can't be made up, right?
Well, we know it's part of history, that's for sure, so it's not
But
made
it's
up.
part of the history of so many religions and cultures. I mean, this goes back to pre-Hindu and pre-Buddhist both. Bon lineage, right? Alien landed at Mount Kailash, and that's where the Bon lineage came from.
Even potentially the prehistoric humans. There's more and more evidence that civilization existed prior to 5,000 years ago. There's evidence, more and more evidence that civilization existed 15, 20, 25,000 plus years ago.
Right. Well, the Bon religion's been around for 18,500 years.
Fair enough.
And it's the origin of Buddhism, but it happened at Mount Kailash, which is where Hindu religion came from. The origin of that also comes from an extraterrestrial being. Yes, Radix, thank you. Yeah, I don't know, it's a lot, it's interesting, it's a lot to consider.
There's a lot to consider, and it's worth exploring, and I'm glad there's people out there that are taking time to study this and do the research and try to put these pieces in place so that we can actually, have these conversations about it. I wouldn't claim to be an expert in it, but I definitely love to follow it. I love to read about it, and because I think there's just so much to be learned from it, and just, if nothing else, just realize how much more potentially has existed here on Earth than what we realize or even imagine at this point. I mean, our human history, even history of intelligent beings, definitely goes back potentially even hundreds of thousands of years. And when we start talking about the potential for Atlantis or Lemuria, some of those potentially truly ancient lands that were reported to be even technologically more advanced than we are right now.
That's right. I mean, look at the oldest computer ever. How many thousands of years old?
The anti-computer mechanism.
That's
they
right.
don't even know how old that is. People, they found it at the ship on a ship at the bottom of the Mediterranean, but they don't even know how old that is.
Right. They think it's thousands of years old.
Yes.
Right. I mean, just by the wear from the seawater, so much damage was done.
Right.
But, I mean, how do we explain that kind of advanced technology?
And to build such a sophisticated mechanism, that's just incredible. I mean, again, I think our most intelligent minds nowadays would have a difficult time creating such a mechanism.
Right. Or if we look at the planetarium at Chichen Itza, right?
Sure.
The calculations started, if I'm not mistaken, at the time of the construction of the pyramid there. Isn't that right? If I'm not mistaken.
Right.
But the calendar went to the year 2012. I mean, but the calculations for the accuracy of the planetary alignment and the astrophysics, which they understood, were only seconds.
Galileo and Copernicus and all of those.
This is only seconds off of NASA's computers to accuracy. Just a few seconds off of the accuracy of NASA's computers from what the calculations are. That's pretty incredible.
It is incredible. Absolutely.
It all fascinates me. Then I could easily go into past lives that I remember and how things were traced and done and constructed and utilized, but it was all following planets and stars and seasons and using nature, which is what most people did.
Observation, nature, and observing the patterns and watching.
But also looking at the skies and seeing
that's what I mean.
What
by nature, that's part of what I'm saying. When
they're travelers in the sky.
Not just the seasons, but also looking at the movement of the stars in the sky throughout the course of the year, every year.
Right.
And recognizing the certain patterns and recognizing these alignments, not just over just a single year, but over the course of potentially tens of years, even hundreds of years, thousands of years.
And remembering seeing the travelers in the sky, and then also having seen them in this life. It's just a reaffirmation for me of what I already know, but not just what I know based in we can't be the only life source, and we're certainly not the most intelligent of all the beings in all the planets. Really? We have bombs and guns. What makes us the smartest?
Yeah,
that already eliminates so much. It invalidates that claim.
That are allocated towards killing and wars and devastation.
Yes.
That's not exactly a sign of higher level of intelligence,
right.
In my humble little opinion.
Right, but a lot of it is what I remember seeing in past lives, and what I've also seen in this life regarding UFOs, and the one time I saw an alien, and just other things. I mean, I've seen more than 200 UFOs, about 200, but a little more than 200, and
I've seen a few.
Yeah, exactly. We as humans
and
don't have technology to
UFOs
create
I
them.
saw multiple times. I haven't seen it for a long time, but there's one that I saw several times over the course of a couple of years span. Which
one was it? Do you mind if I ask?
It's and this is interesting because I have friends of mine that actually saw the same thing, but it's such a bummer because they got it on video, changed phones, and lost the video of this. But basically, it was essentially like four. In one case, it was 3 points of light. In another case, it was 4 points of light, like moving, and almost like in patterns, synchronicity with one another. And each time I saw it, it was like looking over the Front Range. It was here at different points here in Denver where I was able to see it. And of course, it was at night. And even my friends saw it. They were just outside of Boulder someplace, maybe like Highway 36, something like that. Yeah. They saw 4 lights in the video. It was the exact same thing that I saw. I really wish they didn't lose that phone or would have changed the phone because they lost the video when that happened. And I wish they still had that video because they actually got it on video. And it was very, and I know them, they didn't doctor anything, that was just straight off the phone. And, but it was literally like 4 points of white light up in the sky and moving kind of like in a box fashion, and then it's like kind of rectangular, and then going to something more triangular and something circular, and it's moving these different kind of geometric patterns. And then I saw it myself another, like, I think I saw it 3 different times. There's one time with 3, and then the other couple times I think it was with 4. It was the same thing. I saw it once when I was down in South Denver, and then I saw it the other couple times was up in the northern part of town, and it was just the same idea that these lights are just moving in like circular pattern, triangular, or rectangular, or square, and these different geometric patterns are moving in this perfect synchronicity with one another. And it wasn't like they were trying to like rush their way out of here or anything. I mean, I remember just sitting there watching for the longest time before it slowly just moved off to the point where it just went out of sight. That's and again, amazing. Moving the same kind of geometric sort of like patterns, and I don't know. It's interesting. I wonder sometimes if there wasn't a communication or something that was going on. That, I mean, because it wasn't like it was trying to hide itself necessarily. Right. And I did actually talk to other people that did see it as well. Not a lot of people, but I did, during that time, it's probably 6 or 7 years ago now at least.
Yeah.
But I remember a handful of other people mentioned, oh yeah, I saw that too. But that was really, like I said, it just blew my mind. I've seen a couple of other things that were earlier in my life as well, but that was one of the things that stuck with me the most because it wasn't something that you saw it, that it kind of flew away or something. It was like there, it kind of put on a show for me maybe not for me specifically, but it kind of put on like a little bit of a show, like something was really going on there. And also too, one thing I do have in my phone, I actually have pictures of it. I think I'm probably dig them out. It's actually on my computer now, it's on my phone anymore. But I remember I was up at a friend's place up in North Glen, and this happened a couple of times. We got in his backyard, and if you look to, here in Denver, if you look to the west, it's not very well lit. Even to the southwest. I mean, there's some of the suburbs that are out there, but there's not a lot of real big structures. Like if you look downtown Denver's not that big for a downtown, but it's big enough that it definitely lights up the sky a little bit. You definitely see the downtown lights. Even on a foggy night, snowy night, you can see the downtown lights. Now these lights we were seeing off in the distance, like in the southwest part of town. And I took pictures of this. I think it's in my computer at this point. I think I moved them off my phone because my phone was filling up, running out of memory space. Right. But we couldn't believe, we were looking at like the southwestern sky out towards the front range. It's the front range, and Littleton would be that part of town down there. If you want to establish like a suburb direction we were looking from where we're at. We're up north. Littleton is definitely southwest. But these lights were so bright in the sky. It was like the whole sky. It was a cloudy night, overcast, but it was like super, super bright white light. I mean, really, really intense. And both of my friend and I were just looking at this going, what the heck is that? And neither one of us could even begin to explain it. It was just there for hours upon hours. And you go back out and check out, it'd still be there. And I saw that in that same direction, I think, again, 3 or 4 different times. Then on another couple of occasions, I was in the southern part of town, in the Greenwood Village area, and I was staying with a friend down there, and I was taking a walk in the neighborhood late at night, and I was looking just due south of town. It was in a different location altogether, but I was looking just due south of town. And again, there's nothing down there that's going to light up the sky like this. There's absolutely nothing down there that can light up the sky like this. And I saw those same, I shouldn't say lights, it was one light. I shouldn't say it was a series of lights. It was just one super intense light that just had the entire sky just really lit up, and this pure white light just lit up the whole part of the sky. And I mean, way brighter than looking at the downtown lights. It was just so intense. And again, I wish I had my picture. Remind me, I'll have to maybe try to send them to you because I know I have them in my computer or someplace. Because I did take pictures. Because I'm like, I'm gonna get this. I'm totally gonna get this. I wish I would have stopped to take pictures of those 3 and 4 lights patterns, but I didn't think about it at the time. But this other thing, I did get pictures of those. And anybody that I've shown them to, nobody can explain it. And I did meet again, just a couple of people that said, oh no, I did see those too. Or see it as well. But I shouldn't say there were lights, plural. I think it was maybe just one really intense bright light, because looking at it in the sky, it sort of just looked like a just big bright white light just coming through the clouds. And it was, like I said, in both cases, it was there for hours, and even when I saw it south of town, same thing. I took this hour-long plus walk, and every time I would just look over my shoulder and just look at that same section that was south of me and just look back. This really big, bright white light just shining off into the overcast sky. It was just crazy. And again, I'm telling you, there's nothing down there that can light up the sky like that. There's nothing. So, in this case, I do have pictures. I just have to remember to dig it out someplace. I do have pictures of those.
So, did it look like, you said down, were you above looking down like it was on the ground?
No, it was actually in the clouds. Like it was either something, I couldn't tell if it was something shining under the clouds, like city lights lighting up the clouds. It was overcast. So the city lights would be reflecting off the overcast clouds, or for something really, really bright on the other side of the clouds, shining down through the clouds. I couldn't really distinguish between which direction the light was coming from. All I could say was it was huge, though. I mean, it just took up a good part of that chunk of the sky. I mean, when I looked in that direction, whether it was looking out towards Littleton from my friend's house up in Northland, or looking south from my other friend's place down in Greenwood Village, this light just took up a big part of the night sky. The rest of the sky is dark. Again, it's overcast clouds. And each time it happened, it was overcast. It didn't happen on clear nights. It only happened when it was completely overcast. But it was just huge, bright white light, just taking up a big chunk of the sky in that direction.
Amazing.
It's amazing.
It's incredible to see.
And that's not something that's necessarily readily explainable. I mean, maybe there is a logical explanation in there somewhere. I won't rule that out. I'm one of those people that I want to rule out every logical possibility before I start exploring the so-called illogical. But regardless, that's one of those things that there's nothing down there. There's no planes. There's no anything human made that could create that kind of light coming through overcast skies. It was really quite brilliant. Really brilliant.
Do you notice that the lights, the aircraft, the spacecraft, the beings, whatever, tend to show up more when you call for them or manifest them?
These were all very serendipitous moments, very unexpected,
Okay.
and just basically happened. Again, one of the things that when I'm out walking, or especially if I'm just out enjoying nature, maybe there's something about maybe the state of mind that I'm in, especially since I've had this near-death experience. I'm generally in a very, I guess, open, very free kind of a mental space or emotional, spiritual space. So I'm very open to receiving things that maybe aren't readily maybe observed by others sometimes.
Right.
But in this case, there were others that did. I did occasionally meet people that said, "Oh, I did see that. Oh my gosh, you saw that too."
Right.
So it wasn't like I was the only one that necessarily saw it, but it did seem to happen at hours of the night too that not a lot of people were necessarily awake to see it.
Yeah.
I'm a night owl, so when I go take my walks around the neighborhood, sometimes it's 2, 3 in the morning when I go to do that. And same with my friend up in North Planet. I think it was probably at least midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning when we went outside and saw that, because he was a night owl too.
Have you seen any during the day?
Not these, no. I've seen different pattern lights during the day. I was actually at a festival down outside of Taos, kind of in the Taos Mountains, and I had an experience like that during the broad daylight, where it's one of those things where I kind of looked up into the sky, not looking into the sun, of course. Relatively clear day, beautiful day, getting close to sunset, and just remember seeing. In this case, it wasn't like just a few lights, but it seemed like a whole, almost like grains of sand, but in the form of little white lights. And it's like almost like you had to kind of get your eyes kind of relaxed and adjusted in a certain way, where you could kind of see it, because if you could blur them out really easy. So it's one of those things, am I seeing this? Or is this kind of a trick of the light with my eyes doing something that I don't know what they're doing right now? But the only reason I think there might have been something to it is because as soon as I started to tune into it, I saw patterns. I saw all this like very organized movement taking place. And then, again, that one of those things I can readily explain, and this is the case where nobody else saw this.
Right.
But then again, if you looked up to the sky, you might not just readily see it until you kind of relax your eyes a certain way, to where all of a sudden it kind of comes into view, if that makes sense.
Exactly.
Because that's what kind of what happened. I just was looking up into the sky, and again, it's kind of a setting sun, beautiful night, or end of a beautiful day, I guess, and yeah, all of a sudden you could just see just like hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of just these little specks of light. And as I kind of tuned into it, and I was observing it, I started moving in these really beautiful symmetric patterns. Kind of like watching, if you're just like cymatics.
It's hypnotic.
It is, imagine cymatics, the way, like the sound vibration can move, say, stand on a speaker, on a drum or something like that, in very geometric sorts of patterns.
Yeah.
It was almost like that, only in this case it was done with lights that I'm kind of observing up in the sky. And like I said, the only reason I think there could be something to it is because it wasn't like I was just looking up there and seeing just these specks. And because I've obviously got a traumatic brain injury, and I've hit to the head, and I know I've probably got loose pixels in my eyeballs and stuff like that. I have all that stuff going on. But in this case, like I said, it turned into these really beautiful symmetric patterns, and everything was moving in symmetry with everything else. All of a sudden, it was beautiful, just beautiful. So I bring this up because of that quality. I think there was something else going on, or something more to it than just.
Definitely.
My brain injury, or the fact that I got these loose pixels in my eyes, or whatever the case. There was something very intentional going on here. It felt like.
Yeah.
It was peaceful, beautiful. I was just in a great, this space of awe.
Right.
I just didn't mind it. So I just let it lay down for a little while, just watching it for a while. As long as I wanted to lay there and watch it, it just kept on going.
It's so amazing.
Yeah.
I remember one afternoon, a couple of years ago, I was driving with an ex-boyfriend and his son, Radix, and Radix was still fairly young, not really a puppy, but definitely not an adult yet. And we were driving in a direction of Boulder, and looking out over the foothills, and there was a Tic Tac UFO. It was about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. It just out over the foothills. And it was over Boulder, or maybe even North Boulder, but you couldn't really tell because of the size of it.
Okay.
And the positioning of the car and the speed at which we were traveling. But it seemed very stationary. Were you doing that? it seemed stationary, but we knew it had to be in motion. Then we all just watched in awe, and all of a sudden it just took off really fast. Like, just gone. I mean, gone.
And I'm actually one of those.
That is pretty fascinating.
That is.
Because we don't have
We
technology
don't have
to do
craft
that.
that moves like that. No.
No, airplanes don't do that. Helicopters don't do
No.
that. There's
I mean,
no
we've got some really
aircraft we
high-tech
know
jets
of that
these
do that.
days, but nothing that's moving
No,
like
I've
that.
seen plenty of stealth planes that they don't do that.
No.
There's no aircraft that works with the space program that delivers parts for constructing and building aircraft that will do that. Nothing like the Guppy. I mean, there's nothing that looks like this.
Right.
It's just fascinating. I don't know. It's very interesting.
The only thing that I was just thinking about, kind of just to digress, not digress, we go back just for a split second, but I kind of forget the Marfa Lights. Have you ever heard of the Marfa Lights?
Oh, of
In
course.
Marfa, Texas. I mean,
Of course.
and I've seen and
It's
heard
an
such-
artist colony.
Right, and it's still those points of light that I was describing, especially the 3 or 4 geometric lights, I think are a little bit like what have been described as the Marfa Lights in Marfa,
Oh.
Texas. So it was kind of like just came back to me because I forgot
So
about the
many
Marfa Lights.
UFO sightings.
It's so many people have seen that same kind of
Yeah.
pattern lights going on in that particular part of Texas, and you're from Texas, so I know you definitely know about that.
Definitely. Well, yeah, I spent a lot of time there and, cohabitate between Texas and Colorado.
Sure.
So, yeah.
And I did have an experience as a kid with something that was a little bit similar to what you just described as well. And of course, back in those days, anybody that had a UFO sighting, everybody, and then would chalk it up as weather balloons or something like that, which, again, weather balloons definitely don't move like this. They don't move very fast at all. Of course, we're talking, back in the 70s. I mean, I'm old enough, so I was a kid back in the 70s. But I was living in Detroit at the time. And I remember I had a bedroom. My bedroom was in a separate part of the house from the other bedrooms, and the bathroom wasn't real close. I had to go walk through the kitchen to get to the bathroom. And I remember getting up right at dusk, right as the sun was just starting to come up, and I had to go walk to the bathroom. And there was these glass doors that went to our backyard that were right there to the kitchen. And just as you're in a sleep daze, I'm just, and again, I'm being a kid, whatever.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure this was not some dream of a kid, because this literally woke me right up.
Right.
But I remember looking out and seeing this kind of like this sort of like red light, but it looked like it had a shape to it out the window right there, and I was like, just for a second I got curious. That was probably just a plane or a helicopter or something. I just got kind of curious and looking at it, and I'm thinking, oh, I'm tired though, I need to go to the bathroom. All right. And I decided to walk away, then it moved. I'm like, okay, wait a second, that didn't move like a plane or a helicopter or anything. So I'm like, okay,
Interesting.
now I'm really curious.
Yeah,
So I sat there and started looking at it a little bit longer, and all of a sudden it moved in like kind of a one direction, and this like kind of off in one direction, and it just took off and disappeared really fast. And was like,
Wow.
okay, what the heck was that? And I don't know, again, probably 12, 13 years old, maybe, so maybe 11 years old, something like that, and just going, okay, what did I just see?
What was that?
So of course I went to the bathroom, went back to bed, I looked back out the window to see if I could see it again, and I didn't, it was gone. But I remember the next day, there was a lot of stuff on the radios. I always listened to the radio in the morning when I was getting ready to go to school, because I was a little rock and roller kid, and there were a couple of radio stations in Detroit that were great rock stations that had funny DJs and whatnot. So I was listening to some of the morning shows, and they were talking about it.
Oh,
And then
other
actually-
people saw it.
Other people saw it, and then apparently it got talked about in the morning news as well. And then at that point, the things that I was hearing is that everybody was just trying to chalk it up to weather balloons, because that's, again, back then, that's everybody chalked anything that was unexplained. That was a weather balloon. It was a weather balloon. That weather balloons that were testing weather at that time. And it's just like, all I can think to myself,
They're
there's
just
no
not
way
enough
on this
weather
earth
balloons.
that was a weather balloon. Never mind, there's nothing
No.
human-made that moves like that and looks like that.
No.
But there was definitely not weather balloons. But it was one of those things, but yeah, people did talk about it. I remember hearing on the radio, DJs were talking about it. My mom had the morning news on before she was going to work, and they were talking about it. And it's like, oh, no, people saw it. It got noticed.
Yeah, it wasn't just you.
But it wasn't just me. And it was definitely not weather balloons. Definitely not. So,
Wow. That's something. Hey, Radix, what do you want to say?
he's saying it.
He's saying it.
Oh, he wants me to grab his ball.
Oh, you want to hand it to me and I'll just toss it?
Sure.
Get it out of your way?
Oh, it's okay.
Okay.
I can roll it for him.
He loves it when you roll it.
That was such a lame roll. I'm sorry, man. I could roll it a lot better than that. Sorry about that.
Totally fine. It's part of having a puppy. It's just the fun of it.
There he
But
goes.
while we've been on,
He's always in our videos. What do you mean?
yeah,
He's
when
always
we've
part
been
of
on
it.
this video, he's pulled out, I don't know, how many toys? 15 at least?
Oh my gosh.
At
There's a
least
whole
15
bunch
toys.
over
He
there.
has his toy boxes in here. He pulls out
We always
toys.
enjoy our conversations, and he always has to definitely give his input.
It's pretty funny. What are you doing? He's like, what do you think I'm doing? I'm trying to play. Radix. Hey, you know we're filming. Thank you. He's playful.
But
He
he's
has
part of reality.
experiences too. Because he lives with me.
Sure.
So when I have experiences, he has experiences.
Well, there are times that I've had dogs and I've had cats where I swear they're looking at something that I can't see. You know, I had this one dog, his name was Shana. He did it all the time. And I don't know, maybe he just had something loose in his dog brain. I don't know. But there's lots of times he would just he'd just be looking at something, almost like he was just staring off into space. And I'd almost have to like pet him to get his attention to kind of like, oh hey, like he would notice me there because I swear
Oh, I
the
know
dog
you.
was looking at something. He was looking at something or someone. And I couldn't see what he was looking at, but clearly his attention was distracted at times. Like I say, he was kind of a crazy dog anyway, but it's possible something was going on in his, something in his dog
Right.
brain. But all I know is it's one of those things where it's like, everybody would just be, what is he, ask a question, they see him do that, like, what is he even looking at? There's nothing over there. What's he staring off at like that? What's he doing?
Having an experience.
I mean, I didn't know, looking back, I wondered, is he having some kind of a mild seizure? But he wouldn't, because as soon as I pet him or said something to me, he'd be like, oh, hey, there you are, hey. And react like, but he'd be almost like he'd be surprised because whatever caught his attention really had his attention. So, I mean, it's just expressions. And obviously, there's a lot more to reality than what we sometimes think is reality. The brick and mortar is just one sliver of it. It's one piece of it.
That's right.
Yeah.
Kind of like us.
Is it a near-death experience, or I mean, I had an experience that showed me that how much more to existence, to the experience there is than strictly the brick and mortar reality. As I often say in my presentations, and I say it in my book, there is life, and then there is life.
So I was going to share with you a NDE story.
Oh, cool.
So someone I dated had an NDE. He died and came back, and he has a friend he'd been friends with for many years who also had an NDE. So he died and came back, and so one day they're at lunch together, and his friend is a Christian and doesn't really know a lot about other religions apparently, but they're talking. This one day he goes to lunch and he says, well, when I died, this giant blue guy came up to me. He said, I have no idea what that means or what this is, but this giant blue guy came up to me. And one day they went to lunch together to eat at this restaurant, and when they walked in together, his friend just said, oh my God, that's the blue guy I saw. It's the blue guy I saw. They were at an Indian restaurant, and it was
I was just
Shiva.
gonna say, okay.
It was Shiva.
First thing I thought when you said that,
Yeah,
because that's
he saw Shiva when he died.
that's
he
what
had
Shiva,
the- he-
all the figures
he
in Hinduism
had-
are represented with blue skin. It's a part of the symbolism
Well,
of the
but it was
religion.
specifically Shiva,
Okay.
who was represented at the restaurant.
Wow, that's cool.
And when he saw the image of Shiva, he said he just like started crying. He said, "That's who I saw when I died. That's who it was. That's who I saw."
Wow.
And he was crying. He's
I
like,
understand.
because he was
What a
just he
powerful
was
epiphany.
so filled with peace. But he had never heard of Shiva. Had only studied Christianity.
Sure.
Didn't know other religions. Didn't know who Shiva was. All he knew was that this funny-looking blue person came to meet him. But this blue person was filled with love and filled with peace, and he was incredibly comforted by this presence of this blue person. So all he could describe is, I met a large blue guy when I died, and this person brought me a lot of comfort and peace. But they walk into the South Asian restaurant one day for lunch, and he starts crying when he sees the image of Shiva, and he says, "That's who was with me. That's who I saw. That's who I saw." And this person I know was like, gosh, you were with Shiva. It's just very interesting how the many faces of God present themselves to people.
Right.
And how God shows himself to different people at different times. And it's completely judgment free. This is free of judgment because this person didn't know who they were encountering.
And yet when they recognized this individual, it resonated. So much so it moved them to tears. That's really powerful.
Yeah, I think that was beautiful. Thought I'd share that.
I think it's beautiful. I love it. And I love when those connections get made because sometimes you have that experience and you don't always know what it means until after the fact.
Right.
In this case, how long had it been? Months, maybe years before that connection was made?
I don't know how long it had been from the NDE to that day at lunch.
Where is it, buddy?
But interesting to have a South Asian person with the friend who's Christian. They go to an Indian restaurant.
Right.
I mean,
Well, just one of those reminders of just how really interconnected it all is. You know, one of the things that I mean, like kind of like promoting my book, I have a book out called My Experiment with Gravity, which is basically a self-help autobiography based on my near-death experience or inspired by my near-death experience. But towards the end of the book, I present a number of different kind of ideas and scenarios, and one of those things that I like to represent or bring up because of how interconnected I believe this idea of love is, you know, especially across the religions, because I'm not a religious person. I think of myself as spiritual, and religious-wise, I'm very eclectic because I see the truth in all the religions. But I love to pose the question, what do you think would happen if you had a roundtable discussion with Jesus Christ, say Krishna, with Horus, with Kuan Yin, as we talked about, Muhammad, Zoroaster, and so many of the other what might be considered ascended masters, as I think many people refer to them as. So do you really think they're going to be pointing fingers and arguing with each other about who's right and who's wrong and who's going to heaven and hell and all that sort of nonsense? I think, first of all, they're probably not going to get into a big conversation about all that stuff and just really appreciate that they're amongst others that are beings of love like they are, and understand how interconnected and interrelated they all really are, and that they came down to earth to do the same kind of work to affect it and make change, all based in love.
Yeah.
And if anything, one of the questions I love to pose is, can you imagine Jesus Christ and Kuan Yin sharing a belly laugh together, having a conversation and having a belly laugh together? Or Zoroaster and Krishna sharing a laugh together, or Siddhartha and Horus sharing a big laugh together, or something like that. And I think they would. I think it would be a happy, joyous experience. And I mean, I love if I think of someone like Jesus Christ, I prefer to. I don't think of him. I mean, not to say he can't get serious, obviously, but I think of him as somebody with a great sense of humor who just loved to laugh. And I think, you know, any such being, especially when they're at that point of living in a space of love, I mean, I think the laughter is a big part of it. You know, even having a sense of humor and finding a levity in things, the levity in life, and especially in spite of all of the seriousness, all the traumas and all the tragedies that we know take place. That's taking place throughout all of human history and certainly taking place in the world today. But I feel like, you know, for however serious they might potentially, you know, be at times, I think laughter still is the best medicine, and I can't help but just envision Jesus Christ just laughing with a great big smile on his face and just tearing up because he's just laughing so hard. I love that. I love that image, you know?
Yeah.
Of all of those, again, those individuals that people term as ascended masters. I love to think of all of them with that kind of sense of humor. And even for all of what is controversy that may surround, say, someone like Muhammad, you know, he was living at a very violent time in human history. So it is a little bit of a different situation. I mean, how do you survive feudal Arabia when he lived? I mean, what a crazy, volatile, violent time that he lived through. But again, this is somebody who brought people together. It's a long whole thing that goes on behind this. Again, I'm not a religious person. I'm not going to claim to be an expert here. But at the same time, I've learned there's a lot more to it. And there's a lot of, like any religious figure, there's a lot of dogma, and a lot of you know, got fake news going on these days that I don't think represent these individuals the way they're really meant to be represented, because I mean, I believe that he was a being of love, and he belongs in that conversation with Jesus Christ, with Krishna, with Zoroaster, with Kuan Yin, and on and on and on that list goes.
That's right.
All beings of love, and I think that we just treat each other as equals. Nobody's going to be above anybody else, because Love isn't about superiority or inferiority. Love's about bringing people together on equal sharing levels.
Agreed. Question.
And bringing out the best in people, bringing out the best in situations.
More Palo Santo?
Oh, do it, sure.
Okay. Palo Santo. So I have a question for you, Rex. How would you feel about a discussion between you and Siddhartha and Buddha, and you
Siddhartha
and
was
Saul,
the first Buddha, supposedly.
you and Saul and Paul?
I'd be all about it.
Because you had a life before the NDE. You were somebody different before.
I definitely changed quite dramatically since the NDE.
Saul
for sure.
was definitely somebody different before he was Paul.
Siddhartha's been through great, huge changes
Siddhartha
in
was
his
a
life,
different
big
person
time,
before
big
he
time
was
changes.
Buddha.
Before he discovered his role, absolutely.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Sure.
So I wonder how that would look for you.
I guess time will tell.
Yeah.
I'm still putting my life together. I'm still in my reinvention. I'm still, I guess, putting those pieces together. I sometimes, I think I said this to you before in our conversations. You know, my NDE happened in 2011. I may be 56 years old. My body, I have 56 years of life experience. But I oftentimes, joke, kind of serious, kind of a sort of seriously joke, I guess, that I'm actually 11 years old. I'm going on 12. April 10th will be the 12th anniversary of when I fell. Because my old reality got completely blown up. Okay, my old reality is no more. And I literally I came back with all these, never mind, the physiological brain itself works completely different anyways. There's parts of my brain that just don't even work anymore very well. I mean, I had certain abilities, certain strengths that are just no longer strengths, and then certain things that have also emerged that were not there necessarily before. So I have these visions now. Of course, I talk about the music in another video where that emerged. I've been a DJ my whole life, but then I didn't start writing and making and producing music until just a handful of years ago. And I do it with no real actual training. I have all these ideas and visions about even gravity's relationship to the unified field in the multiverse that potentially could even explain what dark energy is and how it really works, dark matter. That's another long conversation unto itself. But just delving into understanding just the nature of existence itself in a way like I never imagined somebody like me could understand it, because I'm not a scientist. I don't have an education in this sort of thing. I barely even have an education. So this whole new reality is still coming together for me. I'm still processing through it. Even what happened in terms of the visual, the experiential element of the NDE, I'm still processing that. So yes, I'm kind of like an 11-year-old going on 12 years old, even despite all my years of actual life experience, because this reality is so completely brand new to me, and it's so completely different than the reality I experienced before. So I think just now I'm starting to formulate and see what it is I'm really meant to do in this world, the work I'm meant to do, what I'm meant to share, and how I'm meant to reach out. But a lot of that stuff is still being put together, because I still have a lot of pieces that still need to be put into place, and hopefully certain people that may still yet come into my life can help facilitate this, because I can't obviously do it all by myself. Obviously you're among those people, obviously. But yes, I guess time will tell. I don't want to put myself on a level of these individuals. I mean, I'm a being of love. I've discovered love for sure, but I'm still a human being, and I still have my fallibilities as a human being, but at the same time I'm very aware of it, and I do my best to work with it, and if I should happen to get off course a little bit, I'll do whatever I have to do to go ahead and fix it and heal it and get it back on course. If I owe apologies to somebody because maybe I overreacted to something or didn't handle something as well as it should have been handled, I'll own it. I'm all about it.
The person.
Thankfully, I don't make those mistakes too often anymore, but at the same time, but again, I'm still a human and still have the potential to make mistakes. But the point is I will own them, and I'll do whatever I can to make sure to heal it and put it in the best possible space. Anybody that I've ever experienced in this life that maybe I have that maybe ended up, relationships that maybe didn't work out, or I have one particular case, I won't get into that right now, of somebody that ended in such an off-kilter kind of a way that I can't say what's going to happen with it, but at the same time, the door always stays open for healing. I will never close the door for anybody, not just this is one individual, but anybody, even going all the way back to my childhood necessarily. I mean, anything in my life that's ever been off, anywhere there's been attention, if there's an opportunity for healing, I'm going to take it. I'm going to own my part in it, and I will always take that. So, as a being of love, I just want to give this life, give myself, those around me, to be at their best. And I believe that's what true love, unconditional love, really is all about, is bringing out the best in everything and everyone.
It is, all the time.
And that's my goal.
We have to show up with our 100%.
Absolutely, and the
And
more
it
I do
doesn't
this, the
mean
better I
that-
seem to get at it. So
Yeah.
hopefully the mistakes and whatnot become fewer and further between. I become
That's
more
right.
cognizant. Plus, my sensitivities are so off the scale now. I've always been sensitive. I've always been empathic, but since the NDE, I'm just like exponentially so much more so, and that's been a lot to acclimate to and adjust to and learn to live with. You know, I don't want to shut it off. I don't want to put a bunch of walls up. You know, when I check into the guidance, if you will, I'm trying to listen, if you will. I'm not getting the message to put up walls and protections necessarily, but to learn how to navigate with it, which I feel like, again,
That's
the more
right.
time that goes by, the better I seem to get at doing that. And hopefully, as my true mission in this life emerges and continues to emerge, those will all be tools that I can use that will help me to to realize and manifest these dreams, these goals, and just my desire to do something meaningful and positive with this life. And maybe by the time I do take my last breath, maybe I've changed the world for the better some way.
That's right. And also, with chronic pain and things that we face,
And
They're
we both
extraneous.
have crazy challenges that
Right.
way.
Our-
I have so many.
well, our 100% will vary from moment to moment and day to day. It's still our 100%. And the people in our lives, as
But
we
you can
know
still
with
take
one
loving actions
another,
even in the middle of a migraine. For me, you can still be. You can
as
still,
we know with one another and within ourselves.
yes,
What
absolutely.
we need from other people is that they know and understand that we are giving and doing and being our 100% best at every single moment.
Sometimes we both need patience from those around us. Sometimes
We do.
We do.
We do. It's kind of hard to ask. Please recognize I'm giving you 100% right now, but sometimes it's really essential to name the obvious.
Sure. That's a good point.
Yeah.
Because sometimes even when it seems obvious to us, it isn't always obvious to others. And you and I have this saying where we don't want to ever let anybody down, and even when we feel like
That's
complete
right.
crap, we still don't want to let anybody down. So,
Right.
and even in those moments, but you're right though. I mean, sometimes it has to be put out there. Hey, listen, right now I'm not at my best. I'm in a lot of pain right now, and I need time and space right now. But you know what? I still have nothing but love, and whatever I can still somehow manage to do, I'm still going to try to do it. But at the same time, sometimes we just need that patience and in that space to just recuperate, to heal. Again, especially when you and I both deal with some crazy migraines at times, and I mean, of course, lately I've been getting them way too often. But yes, knowing that we can be given that space when we need it, but at the same time, when we're out in the world and we're doing what we're meant to do, hopefully those actions, that time we have to go do that. I mean, we're always making the most of it.
We are.
Always making the most of it.
Yeah.
Savoring our relationships, reminding people that we love how much we love them.
Yes.
I mean, I think sometimes people get tired of hearing me tell me, my friends and whatnot. I hope they're not, but I mean, sometimes I wonder because I say it all the time to my friends and how much I love them. Like my music family, even my martial arts family. Some of those folks are not always comfortable having to hear terms of endearment, and not everybody's comfortable being hugged. So I don't necessarily try to hug everybody, but I'll sometimes ask if I can tell somebody doesn't want to be hugged. I'll ask first, and if they say no, I'm not comfortable, that's fine. No problem. You're not going to hurt my feelings at all. I respect your space. But just understand, I do. Even you strangers, even all the people out there that might be watching this and listening to this, I may never ever get to meet you in person, but I got nothing but love for you. I do. I genuinely, sincerely love you. And what that basically means, even if we don't meet, is that I want the best for you. I hope you find your way in this life. If you're not already finding it, I really hope you do. Whatever that means to you, whatever that best self is to you,
Right.
I hope you figure that out and you get to live it, breathe it, and experience it while you've got breath in your body. I genuinely hope so.
That's right.
I mean, the more of us, again, one of my quotes I like to say is, the more of us living the life of our dreams, the closer we come to living in the world of our dreams. That's all of us being at our best. And when
That's
you
one
be
of
at
the
your
things
best,
you dream.
you don't do it selfishly. You want to help bring everybody out, help lift everybody else up along with you as well. Help bring out the best in those around you.
That's one of the things you dream.
I do, all the time. I think about that all the time.
Yeah. That's one of your quotes.
Yes, it is. It is.
And I see how deeply that penetrates your heart when you say it.
It's one of those things. I didn't come back go through everything I went through from this near-death experience, especially the medical side of it was just brutal. I won't lie. I mean, anybody that's had a near-death experience, I mean, come on. Medically speaking, they either came very close to death or they straight up died. And some people, I mean, they were dead for like an hour plus or something like that,
Right.
and then came back. I mean, I mean, the medical implications of that are just profound. And I know with what I went through, I mean, a 26-foot fall, hitting concrete head first, I mean, most people don't even survive that fall, let alone come out of it, you know, with any quality of life. And I'll tell you right now, I haven't come through everything I've come through with that. I'm not going to go through everything I go through every day with these cruddy migraines and all the other post-traumatic brain injury symptoms that I deal with for nothing.
Right.
If I got breath in my body and even just a couple of hours of my day to do something positive, I'm doing it. That's all there is to it. I want to make a difference. I want to make a positive difference. I don't know exactly what that's going to look like just right this second entirely. That's still coming together.
I don't know that we have to know, right?
Well, I think we do at some point. I think it all comes together. I can see the vision forming. So in my case, at least, I can see it's slowly coming into it's becoming clear. It's slowly coming into focus. You know, it's been very blurry for a while. I'm just going on what I felt inside and just moving based on what I felt and kind of the guidance and the messages that I feel like I'm constantly getting. But as more time goes by, especially right now, it's slowly coming more and more into focus where I can see exactly what I'm to be doing. You know, especially now that I'm with the music part of my life. Got a book out, got a second book that's not too far away if I can get back to working on it, because again, I've not been feeling very well lately. Doing the presentations, getting out, talking to people, and just all the things that I'm working on to try to get out there and put these positive messages out there. As I say, I mean, if you put it out there as ideas and food for thought. I mean, for Shana and I both, this is our reality. You know, this is something that it's a knowing, you know, but what you understand is we put this out to the world though, everybody's in a different place in their life and a different place in their path. So I think we put it out there as food for thought. We may know this within our heart of hearts, but at the same time, I can't approach you with, listen to me because I had a near-death experience. Here's what I experienced, do with it what you will. If it resonates for you, go with it. If it doesn't, then it's not for you, at least not at this time, and that's okay. You know, just honor whatever part of your life you're in, wherever you're at in your life, whatever you're learning about, or whatever I guess mode of growth you happen to be in right now. You know, just embrace that and evolve with it. I mean, we're all trying to be the best people we can be for the most part, right? I think that's the idea.
All the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and I kind of feel like you do. Like, why did I come back from the edge of death of a botched hysterectomy? Where, you know, I was in isolation and in hospital for 2 weeks. I mean, to go through all of that. And one of the things that's so interesting about the time and experience there was every time the pain would become so awful and the hospital wouldn't change the clothes I threw up in, or change the IV. My arm was double the size that it normally is because it was infected. The vein had expanded so much. My arm doubled in size from the infection from the IV. They wouldn't change.
Right.
Because they had been almost 2 weeks. They hadn't changed the IV.
Well, I remember talking in a video. You were being told you had 5 or 6 weeks to live at one point. That was from something else. Another one. So there's been a couple of those.
This has been several experiences where I had very close calls. This was from the hysterectomy. Okay. This was from a history of abuse. That after a few surgeries, it was inevitable that I was going to have a hysterectomy, but I put it off as long as I could. Sure. You know, because I wanted to have children, and my experience with pregnancy was losing a daughter. So after a miscarriage, and that had been many years before, and that was from abuse. So with that kind of history, you know, and I have a relationship with that daughter, by the way. Of course. You know, and I met her once, which was amazing, which isn't surprising and is really amazing. I'm grateful to have had that encounter, because in that encounter, I got to embrace her and hug her one time. Wonderful. I got to hug her one time. Beautiful. Yeah. I was really missing just being able to hug her once, hold her once. So I got to in that experience. And I got to see her. And that's beautiful. It was amazing. The power of love. The power of love. And it's eternal. It is, exactly. So I have a relationship. And we are connected. That's a part of the interconnectivity. Yeah. And I have a name for her. I call her by her name. I have a relationship with her. Do I grieve the love that had no place to go? Of course. Well, and do I know where she would be in life now? Of course, I wonder every day. At the same time, I'm so grateful for that one encounter. Like, that one embrace filled such a void. Right. I'm like, I got to hug her once. That's amazing.
Right.
So when I think of, any parent who doesn't get to fulfill all the number of hugs that they want to, or all the adventures and all the memories they didn't get to make, I'm like, you got to make memories? Wow, you're so blessed.
Sure.
But it's the lens, right?
Well, and it doesn't
But
take away the
is
grief.
that to
Doesn't-
take away
doesn't
from their
mean
experience or their grief?
This isn't to suggest
Absolutely
you don't
not.
grieve. You still grieve.
No,
But
this is
even
not to
what we
minimize.
experience, what we know, and what we feel,
Right.
the grieving is still part of the process.
Right. But it's to, like, if you're in my shoes, you see that, you're like, God, you got to make memories together.
I understand. I can
That
at
is
least
so
imagine that. I
cool.
should say I understand, but I can certainly imagine that.
Yeah, it's like, it's so cool they get to make memories. Like, even if they're memories like a day in the hospital of ICU or whatever, like whatever the memory is, or if it's only like 16 years of memories, I'm like, God, you're at 16 years, you're so blessed. Is the grief real?
Of course it is. It
Absolutely.
doesn't take away the grief, but
No,
at the same time,
It doesn't take
you
away
still have those
any of that.
memories
And do you feel
that help to honor
shortchanged?
that individual.
I think forever.
Of course.
Any
A parent should not
parent.
have to watch their child die, let alone
Never.
before they're born.
Never, never, never. So this is never to take away from that, but this is to share, like, where I am, that, oh my God, I got
You would have loved to have had 16 years with your daughter.
but I got a hug.
Right?
It was a real embrace. It wasn't just
understand.
a hug. It was an embrace.
It was love.
Yeah. I got to look in her eyes. That's
Beautiful.
that's a
Wow.
big deal.
It is.
I'm taking it. Like, that was when I got to meet her. So, but to go through that kind of experience and that kind of loss, especially over that circumstance, and then to say, well, later maybe I'll feel better when I get to have kids, and then that day never comes, and then you have all these surgeries and these things to prevent what inevitably happens. And you're really sick with all the surgeries, and you have all the biopsies, and you go through all the.
Jeez.
I had more than 60 biopsies, right?
Wow.
Like, all this stuff was because of abuse, all of it. It was so avoidable. Don't abuse people. Really simple. Just live in love. Like, it's simple. But some people, I guess, don't have that ability. Like, their power and control is more important than their ability to love. But it never is. But that's their lens in that moment.
But their lens is just the priorities have shifted away from love. Obviously, vastly away from
yeah.
love.
Yeah. But a lot of things are altered because of it. And not just their
Well, again,
it's not just
lives
their
have changed. Lives
perception.
didn't happen because of it. I mean, a lot of people.
Exactly. So, but also I'm like, and the world's overpopulated, and there's a bunch of children who are homeless who need homes all around the world, and I could be a place for that. That could be great. But of course, I have autism, so too bad you're not eligible because you have autism.
Even though you'd be a
do that.
phenomenal mom, I have no doubt
I
in my
would.
mind. I have no doubt in my mind.
I would be a great mom, but the government says I can't.
Right.
Because I have autism. They put autism and intellectually challenged in the same category. And they tell us, meaning me, that.
Never mind, she's got a master's degree, but yeah, she's intellectually challenged. But anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
But I'm not. It's just they put autism
No,
and
I'm being
intellectual
sarcastic,
challenges
obviously.
together. But here's what the government says, right? Because it's the government. They're the smartest people ever who make the best decisions possible.
Right.
And they always look at individual cases, right? So what they say about me as an individual is none of you can live independently and take care of yourselves. Therefore, you are not allowed to take care of somebody else, which means you're not allowed to adopt.
Right.
So a person with intellectual challenges can bring a life into this world, but they cannot adopt and take care of somebody else. Okay, I understand that. But if you look at individual cases and understand that intellectual challenges and autism are different, and autism is a neurological disability, and that some people can live pretty independently, be okay, take care of themselves, and have an immense amount of love to give, then maybe there would be fewer homeless children.
Sure.
Because here's the thing. I think a lot of people don't realize this. If every cohabitating couple in the US adopted 4 homeless children in the US, then there would be no more homeless children in the US.
Well, interesting.
That's pretty profound.
It is.
So, that being said, those are actual statistics. That being said, if I marry a neurotypical because I have autism, we could not adopt. Because the government says, I cannot take care of myself, therefore I cannot take care of somebody else. So, I didn't learn that until after a botched hysterectomy.
Jeez.
And that's when I almost died.
Right.
And that's when I was in isolation on tubes and hooked up to things, and it was terrible.
But that's one of those things that inspires you to do the things that you're doing now that you want to help.
You know,
Even some of the posts I see you put up on Facebook sometimes, and it's, you're wanting to help, where there's, homeless animals, homeless children.
right, all the time,
do
right?
something to put that the awareness out
Yeah.
to people, and
Yeah.
you can rally some people to do something about it.
Because my rights to do a lot of the things I want to do don't exist.
Right, I get it.
I'm not allowed to own a home in my name. I'm not allowed to serve in the military. I'm not allowed to own a gun. I'm not allowed to serve jury duty. And I am not allowed to own more than one vehicle in my name. There are a lot of rights I don't have.
Right, wow.
Because of disabilities I have. It's kind of astounding. And all of that is because of receiving disability.
I can understand that. Obviously, I'm legally disabled myself because of a traumatic brain injury, so it's definitely a little bit of a different landscape than when you don't have that.
Exactly. So, it's very interesting. There's so many more restrictions and things. Thank God there are some loopholes, and then some of the restrictions, it's just like, oh, this is how the rest of my life's gonna look. And all I can say is thank God for puppies and kittens. They help make the world better, and they give me a space to be a really good mom.
Absolutely, right.
There's a lot of homeless animals.
Right, absolutely.
A lot of
Lots
homeless
of
animals.
homeless and abused animals as well, just like with children,
Yeah.
all needing home and all needing love.
Yeah. But when I was in the hospital, we talk about miracles, and we talk a lot about faith, and we talk about relationship to God, and all these different pieces, and what it looks like for people who do believe and don't believe, and we hold space for all beliefs, right? That's what we do. Especially with the transpersonal lens. And I don't often talk about my personal faith because it's not always relevant, but in this instance it was very relevant because I had a lot of direct conversations with God. And we talk a lot about free will, and in the free will conversation in the hospital, I was having audible, direct conversations with God, with witnesses. Mostly my parents, sometimes a priest, or, was it a priest or a chaplain? A priest for sure came in. I think a chaplain also came in from the hospital. And because I was very, very drugged because of the pain.
Sure.
I was throwing up bile for 2 weeks, and I couldn't keep down ice chips. So the hospital was very abusive and neglectful, both.
Crazy. Oh my gosh.
So I would be covered in blood for days on end. They wouldn't change me or clean me. be
Crazy.
covered in
Jeez.
vomit for days on end. They wouldn't change me or
I've
clean
heard some
me.
of those horror stories about.
Yeah, but I love that.
That's horrible. I'm so sorry
It
to go
was-
through all that.
It was awful. I went to a hospital which is known for killing mothers and babies. And they have multiple cases of the worst neglect of patients. In fact, my cousin's, his wife went there to deliver their baby, and they knew their baby was going to be born with disabilities. And when the hospital saw how disabled the baby was, they didn't give him the proper medical treatment he deserved, and they were going to let him die instead of treating him. And they had to move him out of Women's Hospital and across the street to Children's. And Children's helped save his life, but Children's also has been a little iffy, but much better than Women's, because Women's was malpractice all over the place. It was terrible, and he's an attorney, but he doesn't have the money to fight a hospital that size with all their attorneys.
Yeah, right. That's a tough one.
So even though I filed complaints and did things and, reported stuff, no one did anything, and I couldn't do anything. But at the time, it was so awful. My dad said, I am taking my daughter out of this hospital, unplugging her from everything, taking her in this gurney and walking her 2 miles down the street, and I'm getting her
Jeez.
into St. Luke's. But I'm getting her out of this hospital because you're killing her. And when we ask for care, it doesn't happen. And right now, my wife and I and her boyfriend are doing guard work for her because she can't be left alone ever, because she's so traumatized from the abuse that she went through here. And we can't sleep because we don't know who's coming in to abuse her next.
Jeez.
And there's so much malpractice. So
Apparently
either
they forgot to read the Hippocratic Oath.
either you get your act together, or we're rolling her down the street. That's all there is to it. He said, I will unplug her today and roll her down the street in your gurney, because she's gonna die if I don't.
Right.
And I was dying,
Jeez.
and everybody knew it. So,
I can't even imagine.
it was-
If you're in the middle of something like that.
I mean, you're supposed to be in and out with a hysterectomy. It's pretty routine. I was supposed to be in the hospital for a couple of weeks. So the boyfriend I had at the time, his parents his mother is still in this realm of existence. His parents were amazing, and thank God his mom is still here. And her memory's different. Wonderful family. His parents are from Mexican descent, and they have some wonderful practices there that are tied to Catholicism and aren't accepted in Catholicism, but are more tied into other practices. I don't want to say a lot about that
Fair enough.
for their privacy, but
Right.
people who know. So there was some of that happening behind the scenes, which for whatever their faith is, I was incredibly grateful. And then also their Catholic faith, and I'm grateful for that. So they brought in holy water, and they had a vial they got for me.
Wow.
And I had a terrible feeling going into the surgery. Something was really wrong. And I just kind of knew, and I was like, I had people at the hospital praying with me before surgery. I said, I don't know your faith, but I feel like I need somebody to pray with me. Like, going into this, I don't feel okay.
Right.
When the pain gets so severe, I would just be like, Mom, they're not bringing medicine to manage the pain. It was Toradol, and it was an IV, and it was really painful. It would burn my veins. But
Wow.
I mean, whatever. Like, I could go through that kind of pain if it could help the other pain I was having, because my intestine shut down, and I was just throwing up bile. So like, please help me. It was so much worse. There was a lot going on. I won't go into a lot going into, but I was so distended from all of that I looked like I was about 7.5 months pregnant, and you can imagine what that looks like on fresh incisions.
Right.
They
I
had
can
to do a
imagine.
lot of work inside. It wasn't just the hysterectomy. There was a
Sure.
lot of other stuff that happened. Many other surgeries they had to do at the same time from all the damage and everything. So So I would just be like, Mom, give me the holy water right now. Just give it to me. And I would just make the sign of the cross, just wherever it was hurting the worst. And right then, the worst of the edge of the pain would go off. My blood pressure would go down. I would just be like, thank you. And I could just be in that state and just breathe and meditate and pray and just give thanks. And I mean, you tell me what this is, because I went through the whole bottle in those 2 weeks. I'm so grateful to have this bottle from his parents. And the priest would come in and we would talk and pray. I could barely do anything, and finally I couldn't even have that happen because I was too sick for even that visitor to come in. It was just my parents and my boyfriend. Nobody else could even see me because I was dying, and I was too sick to talk on the phone to people. My mom would have to talk to people for me because I couldn't even be on the phone. And I mean, it was really serious. And every time before they'd have to do something horrible, major, invasive, or another surgery, at the very last second, like some huge miracle would happen. And this happened 3 times. Some huge miracle would happen. And the post-surgical gastroenterologist would come in. And of course he had to be attractive, because God has a sense of humor, a really big sense of humor. I mean, I lovingly, jokingly called him the poo doctor. And oh my God, was he gorgeous, right? So ridiculous. So ridiculous. And it was just funny because, you know, you're covered in blood and vomit and you're dying. And yet, here comes the doctor. I'm like, oh, well, hello.
The general hospital, one of those general hospital dashing doctor.
No. Like, oh no, this person was like, are you real?
Oh, funny.
Yeah, no.
Was he at least a good doctor?
Fantastic.
Okay, good.
Fantastic. And he came in one day, he said, Shana, do you realize every time before we're going to do something major to you that could save your life but could also be life-threatening, every time before we do something major, at the last second, a huge miracle happens to you and we don't have to do that thing. And I looked at him and I said, you know, I don't know your faith, but I know mine. And I know that you're in a different field than a lot of people, but you're seeing miracles. You're seeing real miracles here. And I just hope that this stays with you the rest of your life and that you remember this.
Probably did. I would hope so.
I mean, I don't know how it couldn't, but it did. So I was scheduled for surgery. And as I said, I was having audible conversations with God when I was in this condition, where I could hear him as clearly as I hear you. We were talking back and forth. I wasn't delusional.
Right.
He gave me a choice to go with him right then and let it all be over and never hurt again, or to stay here and be love and to have love. And he said, you can choose this or you can come with me right now. And it was a deliberate choice. And I chose love. I chose his love here longer. And he even told me, he said, it's going to be really hard. He warned me. He let me know.
Right.
And I told him, I said, I want to have a chance at love. Like, I would like to know. I would like to know what it's like to receive romantic love, genuinely. I want to stay here for that. I want to know what that is.
I don't know what that is too.
Right. But I want to.
But I feel you there. I get it.
Yeah, but I want to show up as your love. He said, okay. And that was it. The exact hour I was to be in surgery, and it was a very invasive surgery that he told me I wouldn't live through if I had it, was the exact hour I was being released from the hospital.
Wow.
And in the hall was my friend Mandolin. And I saw her and I started crying. I hugged her. And she said, they told me that they weren't going to let me back there to see you, but I told them nothing was going to stop me from seeing my friend. and I said, I was too sick to see anyone. She's like, that's what they told me. And they weren't going to let me back there. But I was like, that's my friend and I'm going to see her. I'm not putting up with that. She said, I went all that way. I got this far in the hospital. I even made it to your floor to see you. I was so happy to see her. I said, they're letting me go.
Good.
But yeah, I was so weak I could barely walk. I mean, it was such a journey. But there were so many instances filled with miracles in that experience. But every single time the pain became so severe, I was just like, hand me that holy water right now. Hand me that holy water. It was blessed by this priest who was friends with my boyfriend's mom.
Wow.
And I would just make the sign of the cross over wherever it was hurting, whatever incision or space or whatever, anything, whatever was going on. And the pain instantly would just drop down a little bit and take that worst edge off. It was incredible.
Nice. That's amazing. That is incredible. That's, again, power of love, power of healing. I mean, that's just all great examples of that.
Yeah.
Especially in the middle of such a, I don't even know what you would kind of experience you call that. I mean, just such a traumatic experience, I guess.
Yeah.
It's really traumatic.
And I don't want to go into the details because they're really graphic. You know,
right?
And
there's for the sake of the videos.
Yeah, right. There's no saying and traumatizing people. I don't want to do that. That's not what the focus of my story is.
And we're trying to talk about the power of love here.
It's the power of love, the power of healing, the power of miracles,
yes.
The power of faith, the power of, you know, wherever you are faith-wise, whether it's, you know, a little bit of Santorini or whatever, a little bit of, you know, whatever, you know, mysticism and mix a little mysticism with a little Catholicism and a little bit of, you know, I mean, voodoo's rooted in Catholicism. There's magic and practice and ritual and stuff. I mean, all these things kind of mixed together, and coming from Mexico, you have this blend of like Santorini, voodoo-ish kind of stuff mixed with Catholicism, whatever, and it's its own thing, and you know, and there's a lot of faith and a lot of power in that, and I'm not here to put down what anybody practices or believes, and these are people who were really founded in their faith, who I'm not going to call them good or bad anything. They're wonderful. They're wonderful people.
Well, I would say they were working in love as well.
They're working in the deepest love, the deepest healing, and the deepest foundations of their faith and their family and their heritage and their belief and
anything that comes from the soul like that. I mean, it can come up through any religious channel. It doesn't really matter. If the love is true, the love is true.
Yeah, it's acts of love. It's acts of love. Yes. You know? And then of course, you know, my last name is Boutte. I mean, that is as Louisiana as it gets. You know, there's a whole other thing there. So you know, that's yeah. It's all of it. Like, it you know, I'm just like, bless everybody, bless all the beings, just bless and bless and bless, and miracles are real, and healing is real, and manifesting miracles is real, and where we are is only where we are right now. It's not where we're going to be. And whatever's happening for us.
So kind of like me, you want to make the most of those miracles. You want to do something really amazing. You take all this incredible stuff. Now let's do something incredible with that.
Like the pain, the suffering, those things
are
superficial. It's not the story.
Right.
It's the interference of the story. And it's also like, as I was saying earlier, like when we heal from migraines, when we heal from the things that we go through, this is our testimony. Like, how amazing will it be when we can say, I don't have those experiences anymore. That is no longer my truth. That is no longer my journey. Because it was there, and it was such an interference, and now it's not there. And that's going to happen for us. I hold that space.
You got it.
I believe that. I believe that
Well, I'll say this,
chronic pain
my
is
neurologist
not
actually told me once, and this was a couple of years ago, I think it was my previous neurologist that said this to me, is that, he said that, it was my previous neurologist, he said that, I've seen patients that have extreme levels of TBI and extreme levels of migraine like you have, literally just wake up one day and it just all stops. Can't explain it, don't know why, but there's been cases, it's rare, but there's been cases where people can have the worst cases of migraines, from the worst kinds of injuries or worst kind of, whatever causes those migraines, and just wake up one day and it just all stops and they never have it again. So I am definitely holding out hope for sure. And those miracles are certainly possible.
Yeah, they are. Not only are they possible, they're probable. And I am believing in manifesting miracles for perfect healing for no more migraines. Because if miracles happen,
let the brain start working again, gosh.
Like for Jesus, like when miracles happened, they were instantaneous. And we were promised under his words that we could do things greater than he could. So if he can have instant miracles,
he was an example. He wasn't trying to separate himself from us.
No, he was
trying to show us what we're capable of.
Through him and with him.
Yes.
But not like making us separate, it was making us unified.
Yes, bringing together.
Togetherness.
He wasn't trying to separate himself out. He was trying to say, no, we're all the same in this regard.
Yeah.
You all have the same capacity to do this.
And if I can do this, you can do this even better than me.
Even better, yes.
Yeah. So
that's powerful. That's really powerful stuff.
It is so powerful. And I'm holding out for that. I believe in that. I believe in that healing is within us.
I believe that too. I do think that's definitely possible. There are times that I'm down with a migraine. It's hard to remind yourself of that. And I know I'm preaching to the choir on that one. But especially this last couple of months, it's just been so hard at times. Sometimes I've taken a couple steps backwards, as you know, and I hopefully can just get this all sorted and get back to the positive trend that I was on. But it is sometimes it's easy to lose sight of that. But to be reminded, and glad you said that. I think I needed to hear that right now too. But that is true.
Right.
Miracles do happen, and we are capable of that. That healing is possible. That total, complete healing is definitely possible.
Right. And you and I are both going through a flux of cluster migraines. But we also know that cluster migraines run in patterns, and that the pattern ends, and then the cluster migraines aren't as bad. So we know that this thing that we're in is a cycle, that it's just going to cycle out.
I'm still in mid-cycle, and I'm looking forward to getting at the other end of this, because right now I'm not seeing the end right this second. I mean, I know it'll be there, but right this second, I'm having a hard time.
We've had cluster migraines. We know how the cluster cycle is.
Well, in my case, I mean, of course, mine's a result of my brain injury.
Right.
So when I started having these, when I first came out of the hospital, they went on for a couple of years. So it wasn't like it was just a couple of months and it went away. I was in it for the years.
Yeah, this is
years. And it took years for it to finally subside to the point where it was up until I crashed a couple of months ago. It took all those years to progress to the point where I was at. And I just feel like I lost a bunch of years, and I don't want to take years again to get back to that point. So I understand what you're saying, but it's in the case, at least in my personal experience with what I've noticed with my migraine patterns over the last 11 going on 12 years, some of these cycles have been years-long cycles. So I'm really hoping that this can be a months-long cycle and not years-long, because I don't want to go through this for all those years all over again and have to start the healing process all over again. I'd love to think that at some point I can snap back out of this, at least get back to the point where I was prior to my crash.
I believe that for you.
I'm working on it, and I'm definitely putting that intention out there, and I'm putting that and working on that for sure.
Right now, we've been dealing with more fronts coming in more frequently, and bigger fronts, cold fronts, and barometric pressure changes.
The weather patterns definitely have an influence on it, but I think there's definitely that. But at least in my case right now, there's something else going on, because regardless of the crashing barometer or what have you, I'm getting the headaches anyways. I'm getting the migraines anyways. They're happening daily anyways. So.
The barometer makes it worse.
It does exacerbate it, but it seems like it's just lately it's been coming just no matter what.
Exactly.
I can count on waking up when I start my day within 20-30 minutes of being up and moving around, the migraine sets in.
It is.
I've just gotten to the routine of just taking one of my migraine medicines. I don't know if I can name the medicine for the video, but I just take one of my migraine medicines just preemptively now, because I just know it's going to come on. And if I push my day a little bit, try to get some stuff done, because I don't like to sit around. I don't like being couch potato. I like to be busy. I like to be productive. I like to exercise and work out and all this stuff. So if I try to do that right now, then I end up with a second headache later in the day or in the evening, and this is beyond frustrating. So I'm holding
It's
out.
very hard.
I'm not trying to complain. I apologize if I'm coming across that way because it's
It's
just been
not a
frustrating.
complaint.
It's just been frustrating. That's all. Just venting a little bit here. It's just been so frustrating.
You and I
So
both
much I
have
want to do,
frustrating
and I know you know
times.
this. There's so much to do. So much I want to do.
That's how I
So
feel.
much life to live.
So much I'm gonna do.
And
Have to
spending
put
in
a
bed is
cert
not the
on
way to
hold
do
right
that.
now.
And I can understand, and right now that's what where I'm at in life, and I've got to take that time and do my best to find something to savor it with, and I don't know, something positive to come out of it. Perhaps on the other end of it, I'll see more clearly what this is. But right now, it's a little bit tough being in the middle and trying to see exactly what this is all about because I don't like spending so much time being down. It's not my nature, and even though I need to do it, and I've got strict instructions from my neurologist to do it, it's just not my nature. So it's been a struggle to actually make myself just stop and do it, even though the headache is bad, and I know I need to, because if I don't, the headache just gets worse. It's not like I can just power through it. I can't just push through it, because if I do, all I'm gonna do is just make it worse, and all of a sudden a couple of hour, few hour long headache becomes an all-day event. And if I push that, all of a sudden it becomes a multi-day event. So I have no choice but to lay down until it's gone. Relax until it's gone.
I'm with you.
I know you are preaching to the choir, and if anybody out there is, goes through this stuff, then I know you can totally relate to what I'm saying. So anyway, but I bring it up. We share this, and we want to be an open book about all this stuff, and I'm kind of venting a little bit right now. But the idea is, that just to remind that regardless of it, to keep that fight going.
Right.
Keep that strength inside of you, and keep that belief that you can get through this. And I know somehow, some way, despite my current frustration, I'm going to get through this.
Yes.
None of this lasts forever. And
No.
the quote from a song, it's always darkest before the dawn, blah blah blah. And I'm not trying to make light of that, but it's true. I mean, and I understand. There's going to come a point with which this too will pass. Like all darkness is in life, all the bad things, if you will, in life. Nothing lasts forever. Even the worst of times, nothing lasts forever. This too will pass and give way to something brighter and more beautiful.
That's right. It's going to happen.
It is. It's coming.
And I have the
And all the work we've all been doing, it's all going to come to fruition. I mean, I'll say one thing at least, even though it's because I, overworked myself that I ended up in this position in the first place. But at least I got a lot of great stuff done. So hopefully, as I get to the other end of this and get the right people in place, right situations in place. I mean, I'm sitting on a lot of things I can be really excited about. I mean, I'm not sitting here in total despair and hopelessness, because I've got a lot that I've done. A lot has been accomplished in this process. So just weather this storm and,
Right.
like I say, wait for the right pieces to come into place. And I think everything's going to just really prosper and become abundant and become flowing and positive, beautiful, loving, all those things that we're all about. That we are absolutely here for. And I know neither one of us, we didn't come through everything we've been through for any less. Simple as that.
That's true.
It is true.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to getting through this medical series I'm in right now.
Both of us, right now.
And,
I know.
because I just started phase 3 of the 5 phases
Okay.
of this whole thing I'm in. And I know that can make headaches worse. I know it can make body pain worse. Other things.
Sure.
I'm ready to be through that.
It doesn't get into my
At the same
arthritis
time,
from all my
I
broken
know-
bones, but that's another story.
Well, it can help with some of that. And it can help with the migraines. It can make them worse in the meantime and better
Sure.
later. As long as there's better later, I'm okay with that.
I'm okay with that too.
Brain
If there's better
fog.
later, I'll grit through this. If there's better
Yeah.
later, I'm all about
And
it.
brain
I'm all
fog
about it
is
for
real. Brain fog can be worse doing this. It can be better later. So I'm okay with that as long as it's better later. Yeah.
I'm with you 100%. And that's what we're holding out hope for.
Yeah.
It is absolutely possible, and as you say, even probable.
You want to hold some organite
Oh, sure.
for some boosting
That was pretty.
or a boosting? That's the one that spoke to me for you. Why
Okay.
don't you put this one in the other hand?
Okay.
I feel like those two are yours. They kind of spoke to me in that moment, saying we need to be with her.
Right on. Well about it.
Yes.
Well, I thank you. Gratitude.
Welcome.
Always big
Absolutely.
gratitude.
I have a lot of interesting things in the office to help. I've got the giant shungite pyramid here for shielding. I've got
Protection, sure.
shungite pad over there. It's a shielding pad and half shungite. I've got
I've got a number of
I have the
things that I
Shanghai
utilize in
tower
mine.
here. The tower is an incense burner, and I've got the incense pottery. I've got the all natural candle and
Sage has always been a big help for me. I've got sage at home that I like to use often.
You
as
saw
well.
the sage in there,
Yeah,
and I use a
I
lot
love
of
the
that
sage.
for
Oh.
Reiki.
just love the sage. Oh, just
For Celtic knot as well, for people who need good work with boundaries and some shielding, that's important. And, but I look at all of it, people are like, oh, that's so esoteric, or they have their words and judgments and things for it.
Well,
I'm like, you know what, this is also the Holy Spirit. Or whatever you want to use to describe chi or ki or whatever that flow of energy is, right?
And the thing is that even science doesn't really have a great definition for consciousness. What consciousness is, and necessarily there's not really a physics for the experience. There's physics for experiences. Some of the more measurable aspects of our experience, but in terms of how we all experience, how we all interpret the experience, and how we all feel in the experience. There aren't really physics and mathematics for that sort of thing. There's not really a science at this point. I'm not saying there isn't a point where maybe metaphysics becomes a form of formal science at some point. And that's one of my beliefs that at some point that connection I think will be made. But at the same time, I've got my ideas what consciousness is. The difference between what is, say consciousness versus sentience. And to me, very simply, sentience is self-awareness. I don't think consciousness by itself is what is self-awareness in the classic sense of just being aware of just yourself and being alive. That to me is sentience. Consciousness is that deeper knowing. That's being conscious. Is that deeper sense of knowing, that understanding of the reality that expands beyond the brick and mortar, the expanse of what we may really be, and the sense of understanding, connecting to, and again, having a sense of not just believing in it, but that sense of knowing. That to me is a reflection of consciousness. In a very simple context, I can go on for hours about that stuff, but that in a very simple sense, that to me is a difference between, say, sentience and consciousness.
I think that's a great definition.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Near-death experience help you understand that?
What's that?
Did the near-death experience
That's where it comes from.
understand?
That's exactly where it comes from. I couldn't have explained it like that before, but I talk about that again in my book, and I talk about that when I do presentations. But yes, that's definitely one of those post-NDE discoveries, if you will, visions. One of the many visions I've had since. Because in my case, if people that have studied and followed near-death experience, a lot of people had the experience, in that moment, but then they, came back, if you will, and the experience is over. And a lot of times people talk about, I wish I could get back to that experience. I can't wait till I can go home and have that experience again. For whatever reason, in my case, I had this experience, and the proverbial lights stayed on, and they're still on. And so I'm still having experiences as a result of my near-death experience. It started, that was the moment it all changed, and again, those lights just went on, and they stayed on ever since. The veil got lifted, whatever analogy you want to use in that, to explain that. I'm still living it, experiencing it, and processing it. And that's part of what I'm still learning, to live with in terms of being in the kind of world that we have to exist in.
Once you are having the transpersonal experiences, they don't end. They never go away. They continue infinitely, eternally.
Well, not just that, but just with the knowledge, the insights, the visions, these ideas about what conscious reality really is. And as I say, one of these days I'll have a scientist actually listen to me, a theoretical physicist, a cosmologist. One of these days I've got a presentation out where I talk about what I think dark energy really is. And I'm equating the gravitational force as something that goes beyond just our universe, if you will, to a potential multi-universal existence. And if gravity is a force that is moving a potential multiverse, meaning, for physicists, if you know what the theory of everything is trying to create a simple equation like E equals mc squared, but in terms of the understanding of the universe, trying to connect the strong and weak nuclear forces, electromagnetism and gravity as a single equation. And apparently those first three forces go together really, really well with physics, but gravity seems to be the one that just won't fit in. And not only does it not fit in, but it really, really is a problem for physicists apparently. And I'm going to suggest that it's a problem because it doesn't belong there. It's more fundamental than even a universal force, because it's something that is moving, something that is multi-universal, that is omnipresent and omni-existent. And if that's what we're talking about, I don't have time to go into the whole thing right now, but if that's the case, we may be in a universe where we're going to try to put this in a three-dimensional context. Think about it as a kaleidoscope with no center. Kaleidoscopes are always morphing and moving, colors expanding and contracting and changing and evolving constantly. It's always, in a constant state of motion. And if we have our universe that's moving in a particular segment of the kaleidoscope that's expanding, but not only that, but expanding at an ever-increasing rate, and gravity is at the heart of this multi-universal movement, then gravity would be that dark energy that is creating the expansion of the universe at an ever-increasing rate. That's an incredibly overly simplified explanation of it.
It is, because you can remove gravity, or remove, increase, or decrease gravity.
It is always changing. Even on Earth, it's not even consistent. You can go to the top of a mountain, to a valley, and it's not consistent. And even at that, from day to day, the gravitational force can change, even if only incrementally. Gravity, much like space-time, is completely malleable, it's completely flexible, and it's always in motion. And again, I have a whole presentation that's out there. If you want to check it out, it's called The True Nature of Gravity. That I talk about. This is about an hour, 20 minutes long, and I get into some ideas about what this all basically is. And it's all very rudimentary, because I could literally just talk about this for like days. Eventually I'm going to write a book about it. But one of these days, like I said, I would love to have. A lot of my spiritual friends have heard this, and it seems to resonate for a lot of people when I explain it, especially when I have more time to get into it. But I just wait for the time when I have somebody who in the science community who's open-minded enough to listen to a guy that hit his head really hard to form this knowledge. And I get it. I'm not somebody who's gone to school for it. I'm certainly not a scientist. But yet I have these insights and these ideas that I think could really help explain a lot of these deeper questions in science. And if somebody wants to put the physics to it, put some actual science to it in terms of like taking these ideas and turning them into working theories, I think it could really change our understanding of the nature of existence itself. We'll see. Time will tell. It's another one of those things that I'm kind of waiting on to see what happens. But I think I've got something I could really contribute to this.
I agree.
So anyway, so you got a little snippet of that. I know we could probably, this video is going for, we always have nice long videos of these long, amazing conversations.
We do.
But yeah, just gives you some of an idea of just where my mind has been going ever since I had this near-death experience.
And where my mind's been going since birth.
She's been doing it her whole life, but everything kind of just woke up for me, like I said, with this NDE. And like I say, I'm still there, and as you say, I'm going to be there. And I'm glad. It's overall it's been really wonderful, but I know you can relate. But the whole like overload of sensitivity, the intuition, empathy thing, especially in a world that has so much hardness to it, and so much trauma, and so much hurt and pain, it can be really overwhelming at times. I don't want to make I don't want to. How should I put this? Because I don't want to not be able to feel what people are feeling. Because especially in situations where maybe I can actually help. I do have friends sometimes that. I can sit down with them and let them cry in my arms or something like that. Or sometimes it's a presentation that I'm doing and maybe people in the audience are going through whatever they're going through, struggling with whatever they're struggling with. And maybe I say something in that presentation that helps them in that moment.
Right.
That's what makes it all worthwhile. And it's that empathy that helps me to know where to go and what to say in those moments. And also too, again, if somebody just needs somebody to just hold them while they cry and just let some of that hard emotion out, I'm happy to be there to do that. And this is one of the things that allows me to do that. Is that empathy. But sometimes, of course, in day-to-day life, even just going to the grocery store sometimes, this isn't about whether someone's a good or bad person or anything like that, but just so many different energies, and people are going through so many different things in their lives, and some of the things that people are just going through are just hard things. And to be feeling all of that all at once, just sometimes it gets really overwhelming. Processing through it can just take a lot of effort sometimes. And every so often, I literally have to psych myself up to just go to the grocery store sometimes, because I just know I'm going to walk into a lot of energies. It's okay. It's totally okay. But sometimes it takes a certain amount of effort to just be able to move through it and make sure to move through it peacefully. Because on the off chance that, and again, sometimes you just never know. You might have a brief encounter with somebody at the store or wherever that may be, a total stranger, and maybe just and I'll just say, if something just comes to me in that moment to say something to that person, I'll just say it to them. And I know that sometimes it might be the one thing they might need to hear in that day that might get them through something they're going through, or maybe to help them shift something in place, or something that they're thinking about, trying to figure out. So I don't ever want to lose this, but this is just, sometimes it is. And anybody that is a crazy level of empath and has a crazy level of intuition, I know you can relate to this, and you probably feel this way too sometimes. It can be just hard to just traverse, just getting through a simple day. And again, this has nothing to do with whether people are good or bad people or anything like that. I think everybody's basically loving in their nature. But everybody's going through something.
Right.
This is the time in the world where challenges are everywhere for people, and there's a lot of stress with a lot of people, and it just again, if you're feeling those emotions all the time, or feeling those feelings and getting those energies all the time, it just can take a lot to process through, and just,
I can.
in my case, maintain my own personal equilibrium in the process, and make sure that, again, I can stay at my best, so when I have an opportunity to help maybe say that one right thing in that one right moment, I can just, listen to that intuition, listen to that empathy in that moment, and be able to make sure I do that. Because again, we don't always know what the difference is going to be. Maybe you never see that person again. But in those cases where I've had a chance to get the follow-up, if you will, so many times it's like, wow, somebody will comment, wow, I'm glad you said that in that moment. That really made a difference. I don't know how you knew to say that very thing in that very moment, but thank you for doing that, because it did. It actually made a difference. I'm like, okay, great. And for that reason, I want to be able to make sure to keep doing that. As we've talked about through this whole video, I mean, one of our purposes here is not just, in terms of being the best in our own lives, but being able to help raise other people up as well. And, we're really here to try to help make the world a better place than we found it,
Yeah. And one of the things I'm offering right now in mental health support, and also with, as a spiritual coach, life coaching, and with Reiki, I'm offering all my services on my website right now as a love donation.
Wow.
For
Reach out to
a
her.
limited time.
She's an incredible healer. I mean, she's on healing work
I'm
on
not
me as
doing
well.
the hourly rate right now, or the discount for a 2-hour session, or any of that. It's all love donation. So.
And I'm just saying, I've experienced it. Of course, we've known each other a long time, been friends a long time, but she's the real deal. So I say reach out to her.
You do know
I have. So I'm saying I have experienced it, so I know you can move some serious energy. You really can.
Yeah. I want to bless people and help people. With the recession, things are different. With right now we've got a Russian leader threatening World War III and other things, particularly with us providing support to Ukraine. Things are really unstable, a lot of uncertainty.
A lot of people are dying.
There is
suffering.
a recession. We are in a recession, and people need services. People need disability services. People need mental health support. People need life coaching. People need spiritual coaching.
Absolutely. Yeah. Lots of people are in that space.
And people need Reiki, and people need advocacy and consulting for disabilities, and
outlets for all those emotions you're dealing with.
Yeah, and I'm here, and I'm like, you know what? We're all going through a very interesting time. How can I bless and help and support people? So I've contemplated this, and this is something I've been doing for a little while, and I'm continuing to do this, and until I'm called otherwise. This is what's going on. So love donations it is.
Yeah, and I'm very happy to do presentations, get out and talk to people.
Yes.
Get these ideas out there, and like I say, there's just been lots of times and lots of examples where hopefully I can just find that one right thing, do that one right thing in that moment when somebody really needs it, and it can make a difference in their life.
We're both public speakers. We both present. We present individually. We present together. So
I'd even recommend my book. I mean, I'm not trying to just, I guess we're going to do some promoting here, but yeah, my book, seriously, get it on Amazon. It's called My Experiment with Gravity. Kind of a reflection of the fact that I fell. That's mainly what the title is about. Yes, I have these ideas about gravity, as I mentioned, but the idea behind the book is because I fell 26 feet, and rather than referring to it as a fall, and I've never called it an accident, it was just something that my friends and I my family and I started joking about, that, hey Rex, how you doing since your experiment with gravity? And eventually that's became the name of the book. But the point is, it's about my life story. It's about where I've been in this life. It's about the near-death experience and how it changed my life. And it's really a book about showing what's really possible. And again, putting these ideas and experiences out there. And one thing that people have commented about the book who have read it is how many things that have been overcome in my life. There's been challenges in my life, but yet the stories, even in my previous pre-NDE life, it was always about overcoming one thing. The next challenge in life comes up, we overcome that, we work through that, and end up better for it every time that we overcome something. And the idea behind the book is to inspire you maybe to do the same. Don't get stuck in a rut. Don't dwell too much on any one thing that you're in the middle of. No matter how difficult, tragic it may be. Even when somebody dies, yes, you got to feel the emotions, and you can't resist. You got to let that all out. You got to let that flow. But you also have to be careful not to get so caught up into it that you never get yourself back out of it, so you can let yourself live again. So the idea behind the book is, I describe it as a autobiographical self-help book that's very spiritual in nature. It's also about transition, shifting, and showing what's possible in this life and in this world. So check it out. Again, it's all meant to help. It's all meant to be food for thought. Hopefully it'll say one thing, even if it's just one thing in that book that helps you. Again, one of my many little quotes I like to use is, if one part of my story can help you with any part of your story, hey, goal accomplished.
That's right. And right after we finish recording this, I'm going to your Redbubble website.
Gravity.life.
Because, I'm going to gravity.life to make a couple of purchases.
And on Redbubble, thank you very much, I appreciate that. And on Redbubble, because they don't allow periods for the name, so you gotta type in Gravity DOT Life. But again, it's about putting positive messages out to the world. And there's something for everybody. You know, adults, children, no matter what you think, what you believe, religion or otherwise, there's something for everybody there. And it's like I said, it's all about putting the positive messages out to the world.
That's right. Does this feel complete to you?
This feels quite complete. It's been quite the
Good.
journey.
It's a great conversation.
Thank you. Hey, still holding on
Thank
to
you
these.
so much for joining us.
And thank you, seriously. Love you so much. And
Thank
always
you.
wishing you nothing but the best. Always wishing you the best. Lots of love.
Peace.